Hello, friends. We are very interested to know which cities you are listening to us from, so quickly like and write in the comments where you are from. Also, share what shocking stories happened in your city or maybe even with you personally. Subscribe because the next story could be about your city or even your personal drama. Now let's dive into a new exciting story. The ringing of rusty bells at the entrance to the marine tackle shop announced the arrival of Cole Shepherd. Outside, the sun was blinding the sandy shore, the horizon was hidden in a light haze. Visitors called Eivelyn Cove a quiet land where the ocean winds were sometimes louder than the voices of the residents. Cole always smiled at these words. He grew up here and knew that behind the apparent calm lay the bustling life of a fishing town, with its dramas, quarrels, and small joys. "Hi, Jude," Cole greeted, lifting his already slightly tattered baseball cap. Behind the counter stood the thin and agile owner of the shop, Jude Walker. He looked up at Cole with curious eyes. "Great. Need to fix the gear again, or maybe he lost his anchor." Jude tried to joke, although his speech always sounded somewhat nervous. "Today, I'll just take the hooks. The couple broke up on their last fishing trip, and my fishing line is already running low." While Cole was sorting through the rolls of fishing line in the window, another man came into the shop, Old Man Martin, a former naval officer, now a local Haja, as he was sometimes called. He was always muttering something about politics, about how it was better before. Martin greeted with a nod and sat down on a wooden chair by the window, from where he could watch the waves lick the pier. "Shepherd, a storm is coming soon. Have you heard?" Martin suddenly turned around. "I heard." "Martin, you predict a storm every season," Cole answered, trying to look interested. "I've never made a mistake," the old man grumbled, sipping an old filter from a cigarette that should have been put out long ago. Cole chuckled. His head was occupied with other thoughts. Only this morning Hannah stayed in the city, saying that the hotel was in shambles. She works as an administrator and sometimes stays overtime, but lately this has begun to happen suspiciously often. Hannah's voice increasingly sounded irritated, and her gaze flickered with some kind of melancholy, which Cole could not fully understand. He slid the money onto the counter and picked up the bag of hooks and line. "Thank you, Jude. See you soon. Come back again." He waved him off, turning his attention back to the phone. Outside, the wind seemed to spur Cole to move faster. He walked around a small pier, where several fishermen were already sitting with their fishing rods, and then went down to his boat, the White Mermaid. The boat is old, but well maintained. He himself patched its hull more than once, painted the sides, and changed the engine. It was here on the water that he truly felt himself. Cole got on board and checked the rigging. Today, according to his plan, he had a leisurely fishing trip, but there was a restless feeling inside him. Maybe it was because he slept in the living room for a couple of nights in a row, not wanting to disturb the tired Hannah. Maybe her detachment was making itself felt. And one more disturbing thought. Somewhere out their lives, the past Emilin, a girl who once disappeared from his life without explaining anything except a short letter. He shook his head as if shaking off the memories. "This is not the time." He muttered under his breath and cut off this thought. Cole took the boat beyond the breakwater, from where the ocean opened in all its glory. The waves slowly rocked the White Mermaid. Here, far from the shore, he usually talked to himself. "It's unlikely that anyone will hear only seagulls and the wind. Well, sea surface, can you throw me a couple of good fish?" He chuckled at his own words. "If I'm going to stay here, it's better to find pleasure in it." The vibrations of the boat had a calming effect. He cast the fishing rod and checked how deep the line went. The sun blinded my eyes. I had to squint. A gust of wind brought salty splashes onto my face. Once upon a time, he and Hannah dreamed of opening a small souvenir shop here, perhaps organizing excursions for tourists. But then, Cole still didn't understand where his wife's spark went. He noticed how the float barely moved. All that was left to do was wait. Waiting for the catch gave me time to think. Once upon a time, he spent whole days near the shore, thinking about how to return Emilin. But she seemed to have disappeared. Maybe I just couldn't give her what she needed, Cole often thought. But now he was married to Hannah, he had to build a future with her. Suddenly, the float jerked sharply, and Cole hurried to hook it. I hooked up a nice Xander. He twirled it in his hands and assessed it. It's nice, about 700 grams. He took it off the hook and put it in the fish tank. A smile touched his lips as he imagined grilling fish that evening. Maybe Hannah will come early today and they can have a normal family dinner. Since last week, she has hardly been home until 9 in the evening. Cole felt how every day she went somewhere in his thoughts. Well, no, that won't do, he said almost out loud. We need to talk to her openly. But a chill was already creeping inside. They had conversations several times, and each ended with Hannah's superficial assurances that everything is fine. Hardly okay, and Cole began to guess that the reason was deeper than just fatigue. The hotel where Hannah worked was located at the water's edge, a large, bright building with panoramic windows, promising guests a panoramic view of the ocean. The spacious hall, pearl gray walls, silver vases at the reception, everything looked more luxurious than you would expect from a small town. This place has become popular among wealthy tourists after a recent publication in a travel magazine. Hannah sat at the counter, straightening her brown curls. There was boredom mixed with tension on his face. For her, working in a hotel was not just a way to make money, but a kind of illusion of a larger world where there were more interesting people and opportunities. At one point, she noticed the reflection of Gavin Rolls, another important guest, in the mirror surface of the tabletop. He stood about 3 meters away, slightly tilting his head, examining her. "Good morning, Mr. Rolls. How can I help?" she asked, trying to sound professionally friendly. "Kind. I see that everything is so well organized with you, but I would like to ask for one special breakfast in your room. Maybe you can help organize it." Gavin smiled, raising an eyebrow. There was something in his gaze that made Hannah's insides either tremble or burn. She often met self-confident tourists, but this one seemed to be playing a special game. "Of course, tell me what your preferences are," she answered, giving a routine smile.
Mm.
"There are many preferences. Maybe it's better to discuss it in person, over a cup of coffee." His voice sounded quiet, but with growing confidence. She touched the ends of her hair, trying to remain serious. "Unfortunately, I can't leave the counter, unless after my shift." "Great." He quickly glanced at the badge with her name on it. Hannah Shepherd. Sounds. "Does your shift end at 6? Hannah felt her heart beating faster. It was as if some alarm signal was breaking the calm, but she could not resist it, as if she was being pulled in this dangerous direction. "Yes, at 6. He nodded and walked away, holding his gaze meaningfully. She looked after him, realizing that something wrong was happening, but unable to say stop to herself. After all, it's just coffee, isn't it? A little later, her replacement, Carla, appeared at the reception. A short woman, about 35, always cheerful and a little talkative. "Hannah, I saw this guest of yours," Carla whispered. "It seems to me that he is interested in you." "Yeah, well, dump it," Hannah shrugged, but a slight blush flooded her cheeks. "I saw how he looked. Just be careful, darling. This is not my first year working here. I know how such views end." "Carl, it's just coffee," Hannah said, throwing up her hands. "I'm actually married, in case you forgot." There was sarcasm in the voice, but there was something like a prick in my chest. Married, and then the image of Cole came to mind, kind, caring, but so simple in her eyes. Sometimes it seemed to her that it was even too simple. Fishing, a boat, fishermen friends, no luxury, no plans. But she wanted more, travel, new experiences. She threw herself into routine. "I know you're married, yes," Carla grinned. "Just be careful, okay?" "Yes, everything is under control," Hannah assured, but deep down she felt that this control was already beginning to slip away. It was getting dark. The waves near the shore were already seething more violently, perhaps foreshadowing the light storm that old Martin had been talking about. Cole returned from fishing and put his catch in a bucket of ice water. In the kitchen, he began to prepare the marinade. A little lemon juice, garlic, salt, pepper. Everything seemed to be going as usual, but you could feel the cold in the empty house. Hannah was late, although she promised to be back at 6. It was almost 9. Cole checked his phone, no call, no text. Okay, maybe something happened at work, Cole said, as if trying to calm himself down. He dialed her number several times, but the call went to voicemail. Suddenly, the keys rustled in the door lock, and Hannah walked in, looking tired and a little worried. She threw her bag on the table and took off her shoes. "Hello," she said quietly, as if apologizing. "Hello. I was worried. It's already late." The phone didn't answer. Sat down. "I." She paused, coming up with an excuse. "I was just delayed. We have a rush today." Cole nodded, trying not to express any obvious reproaches. "I prepared dinner. I think the fish has already cooled down." She walked to the table and looked displeased at the plate with fish and side dish. "Thank you, of course, but I'm not particularly hungry. I would like to take a shower and sleep. I'm terribly tired." Was it really that hard for her to say, "Thank you, honey"? Once upon a time, she rejoiced at such dinners, thanked her, kissed her on the cheek. Now her gaze was so empty. Cole tasted bitterness on his tongue, but I decided not to make a scene. "Okay," he answered quietly. "Go, rest." Hannah disappeared into the bathroom. Cole heard the sound of water, imagined her standing under the hot streams, trying to wash away. What? Guilt? Doubts? He didn't want to think about bad things, but the forebodings were alarming. After Hannah changed into a night t-shirt and went to bed, Cole still entered the bedroom. He felt he should try to talk. "Listen, Han," he began in a low voice, sitting down on the edge of the bed. "We haven't had a heart-to-heart talk for a long time. Everything is somehow in different schedules. Are you okay?" Hannah lay there staring at the ceiling. "In order, I'm just tired. Maybe we can take a vacation together. Let's go somewhere. I earned extra money in the summer, so we can afford a couple of weeks of rest." She grinned. "And where do you want to go?" "I don't know, maybe to the mountains, a change of scenery, or to another state." "Cole, you know that work won't give me a vacation now. And," she paused for a moment, "I'm not sure that I want some kind of vacation together." His heart went cold. "That is, I don't want to lie to you. I feel like my whole life is passing me by. It's as if I'm looking at myself from the outside and realizing that I haven't achieved anything. I'm not going anywhere. I'm locked up here in this small town." "But didn't you want this peace of mind?" He flushed. "Together, we decided to move closer to the ocean. We lived in the city, but there was enough fuss." "Yes, but I've changed, apparently. I don't know what I want, but it's definitely not this swamp." The word swamp burned through Cole like an electric shock. "So Eivelyn Cove is a swamp to you, and I'm part of it." "No need now. I'm just explaining why I'm so tense." Cole felt bitterly offended. He left the bedroom, his heart pounding as if after a run. The words, "I have changed," echoed in my head. Maybe she really has changed, but he remains the same. But for some reason, an inner voice whispered, "There is something more here than just fatigue." The next morning, Hannah left for work before Cole woke up. She left a short note. "I left early so as not to be late for the planning meeting. Don't forget to feed the dog. X." Nothing unusual, but there was not a hint of intimacy in these lines. At the house, near the gate, Cole met the postman Ben, a young guy who had just started working in their area. "Good morning, Mr. Shepherd. Letters for you." He held out a thin stack of envelopes. "Hello, Ben. Thank you. How's work?" "Yes, okay, I deliver. No incidents." Cole nodded and, barely saying hello, headed back to the house. Leafing through the mail, he stopped at an envelope with unfamiliar handwriting, but with a return address, some kind of law office from a neighboring county. An unpleasant feeling began to stir in him, like a premonition. Maybe it's nonsense. He muttered and opened the envelope. However, inside was a bill for legal advice dated 2 weeks ago. The consultation was ordered by Hannah Shepherd. Cole reread the lines several times, not believing it. on matters of property agreements. What is this? He quickly took out his phone and dialed Hannah's number. She didn't answer. Breathing heavily, Cole went to the backyard, sat down in an old wicker chair, and just looked at the sea, barely visible in the distance. It seems to them that it's not enough. Does she want a divorce, division of property? Or maybe she is preparing for some other agreement. There were too many questions swirling around in my head. Sighing, Cole decided to push away these thoughts and went to the shed for tools. He wanted to at least do something useful, fix a window on the terrace that had been broken by the wind. But his neighbor, Jeremy, a thin man in a worn baseball cap, appeared near the fence. "Cole, are you okay?" he asked, noticing the gloomy face. "Yes, yes. Everything's fine, it's just not very good news." Cole shrugged it off. "I understand," the neighbor grunted, as if hinting, "If you want to talk, I'm nearby." They exchanged a few phrases about the weather, about the upcoming small storm, after which Jeremy went to his room. Cole had no time to be frank. He knew he had to work this out with Hannah personally. Gathering his courage, he got into his old pickup truck and drove to the Tide Hotel, deciding to find out everything on the spot. Once in the hall, he felt uncomfortable among the tourists scurrying back and forth with suitcases and cameras. He walked up to the counter where Carla was standing. "Cole." She raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Hello." "Hello? Where's Hannah?" "I left about 10 minutes ago for a break. We'll be back soon." He nodded and walked over to the large window, looking out at the waves. In the reflection, I saw Carla glance sideways at him a couple of times. "He probably thinks I'm a jealous husband or something," he thought. Hannah appeared a few minutes later, smiling at someone behind her, and then her gaze slid to Cole. The smile melted. "Cole, what's happened? We need to talk. Is there somewhere I can retire?" She led him to a small nook behind the hall where employees usually rest. She slammed the door. "You scared me," she said quietly. "I'm scared too. Explain what this lawyer's bill means." Hannah turned pale. It seems that she did not expect that the letter would arrive at the house and that Cole would see it. "Are you rummaging through my mail? It came to my address, but your name. We don't hide mail in our house, right?" His voice sounded tense. "What is this? Do you want a divorce?" Hannah sighed and closed her eyes. "I was just consulting. I needed to understand what my options were. I didn't know if I should leave." "Leave? Seriously?" Cole felt how everything inside was shrinking. "That is, you have already reached such thoughts." Outside you could hear someone dropping a suitcase and laughing, and in their tiny room it was as if the world was collapsing. Hannah looked at him pleadingly. "Cole, I don't know what to say. I'm so tired of everything. You, this city, are a constant routine. I don't have the strength to continue pretending that I'm okay with being here. What does divorce have to do with it? Couldn't we just talk?" I tried. "But you don't seem to hear." Her voice trembled with pent-up emotions. "Understand, I'm exhausted. Yes, maybe it's selfishness, but I'm also a human being." Cole took a deep breath. "I understand that you need more movement. I was ready to change something. It's too late. I've already." She stopped short, apparently afraid to say too much. "What are you already doing?" Heat passed through his veins. "What are you hiding, Hannah?" She looked at the floor. "Nothing. There's just a lot going on right now, and I don't want you to suffer, but I can't bear this on myself." Cole was silent for a moment, then put the envelope in his pocket. "If you need a divorce, say so. I never held you by force. But damn, I thought we meant something to each other." Hannah looked him straight in the eyes. There was so much in that look: guilt, pain, but also determination. "Cole, I'm just asking, give me time to figure this out. This is just a consultation." "Fine. But know that if you take a step, I won't cling. And don't think that you'll throw me away and then come back when you get bored." He turned around and left the room, and Hannah sank heavily into the chair, clutching the edges of the seat. She needed a few seconds to come to her senses and go out to the counter again with a smile, as expected. Towards the end of the week, the town was hit by a small storm. The wind rustled through the shutters, waves crashed against the pier, storm clouds covered the sky. Evelyn Cove seemed to be lying in wait. Cole patched up the windows and doors to keep drafts out of the house. The dog, an old mongrel named Spike, squealed sadly as he sat by the door. "Hey, buddy, the weather is so-so for both of us," Cole said, checking that the shutters in the living room were properly closed. "Hannah hasn't been home until midnight the last couple of nights." "Late at the hotel," she said. Cole no longer knew whether to believe her or not. He didn't want to be the one checking the phone or making a fuss. That wouldn't be right for him. But the feeling that Hannah wasn't here grew stronger. The lobby of the Tide Hotel was unusually quiet due to the storm, with many guests canceling their trips. Hannah sat at the counter, clutching her coffee mug with trembling fingers. The sound of the ocean and the creak of the wind outside the windows were almost ominous. Gavin Rolls appeared, slowly stepped off the elevator, and walked up to the counter. "How are you doing here?" "The weather's not kind," he smiled, tilting his head slightly to look into her eyes. "Yes, as you can see," Hannah shrugged. "And you are so pale. Maybe we should drink something hot. I see your bar is almost empty. Everyone is hiding." She wanted to refuse, but her inner feeling of loneliness prevailed. She sighed. "Okay, but for a couple of minutes." They walked over to the bar, where bartender Tommy was lazily wiping glasses. Hannah ordered tea, Gavin ordered whiskey. We sat in silence for a while, and suddenly Gavin asked, "Why are you so sad in such a beautiful place?" She joked. "Sad? Maybe it's just a storm outside." But Gavin didn't back down. "No, you clearly don't like this storm. Or maybe it's not the weather." Hannah found herself wanting to speak out, even though she had only seen this man for a few days at most. And yet there was something about his confident manner that was endearing. In the end, she simply said, "I'm tired. Tired of everything. I feel that I do not live, but exist." Gavin took a sip of whiskey. "Understand. I too was once stuck in a place I didn't want to be. Then I took the plunge, went on a trip, and discovered the world. Maybe it's time for you to break down too." These words struck to the very heart. Break loose. Hannah seemed to see before her eyes distant cities, noisy streets, luxurious hotels, parties, everything that she misses so much. "I don't know. I have a husband, a house." "Well, this is not a sentence," he grinned. "If your husband doesn't let you live the way you want, maybe you should think about it." She remained silent. Gavin was partly saying what she was thinking. But was she ready for change? This Gavin seemed cynical and self-confident, and yet, he was a new breath of air. That night, when Hannah returned, the clock showed almost 1 in the morning. Cole was sitting in the living room by the fire. The power was out because of the storm, so he lit a couple of candles. "Why is it so late?" he asked, without raising his voice, but with obvious irritation. "I'm late," Hannah muttered, trying to walk past him. "Why didn't you call?" "The phone is dead." Cole nodded, trying to restrain himself. "Hannah, I'm not stupid. You're lying to me. What's happening?" She turned sharply. "What should I tell you? That I'm tired of us. That I no longer want to spend my evenings listening to you talk about boats and fish. That I want a different life. Is this what you want to hear?" He looked at her, his heart pounding. "Yes, maybe I want to hear the truth." "What is it?" Hannah snorted. "The truth is that it's cramped and stuffy for me here. I don't want to be a fisherman's wife in a small town who lives from one catch to another. But you married me. People change, Cole. And if you can't understand that, then we'll both be miserable." Lightning flashed on the street, thunder boomed so loudly that the windows rattled. The dog Spike howled somewhere in the kitchen. Cole put his hands on the table, clenching his fists. "I understand that you want something else, but it looks like you've already gone for legal advice. So this is the finale." Hannah shook her head, seemingly allowing tears to form in her eyes for the first time. "I don't know yet, but maybe yes." For several seconds, they looked at each other through the semi-darkness, illuminated only by the flickering flame of a candle. "You know what, Han?" Cole said, barely restraining the trembling in his voice. "If you decide to leave, I won't stop you. I already told you that, but don't torment me if you've already made your decision." She just wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "Okay, I'm going to sleep." Cole was left sitting in the dark, staring at the empty doorway where Hannah had disappeared. Everything was mixed up in my head: pain, pride, anger, anxiety for the future. The sound of drops from the night's rain could still be heard in the air above Eivelyn Cove. The sun had barely risen, and its rays reflected on the wet asphalt of the narrow streets. The coastal town was slowly waking up. Someone was already hanging clean towels in small guest houses. Someone was opening a shop with fresh seafood. At the entrance to the Ocean Breeze Bakery, two boys in school uniforms were arguing over who had the coolest backpack, and an elderly couple sat at a table talking about the weather forecast. Cole Shepherd stood next to his old pickup truck, holding a cup of coffee that he hastily bought at the same bakery. The coffee was almost hot, and steam rose from the lid, mixing with the cool air of the morning. He had been in the habit of getting coffee to go every morning since Hannah started cooking breakfast at home less and less. They used to drink coffee together, discussing their plans for the day. Now, everyone lives in their own reality. Today, he had to help Uncle Bill at the fishing pier. The recent storm had left behind a lot of consequences: torn ropes, broken boards, sea vegetation clogged in the net, and other debris. Trying to push away the disturbing thoughts about Hannah and her new life, Cole took a few sips and headed towards the pier. The Evelyn Cove fishing pier stretched a couple hundred meters along the water. The old wooden piles creaked with every step, having long been in need of repair. This pier was once the pride of the city, especially when fishing was booming and merchants stocked their stalls with fresh catches and tourists came in droves for Atlantic delicacies. Now everything was more modest. Great Cole, Uncle Bill, a stocky man of about 50, with gray hair and a thick beard, waved his hand to him from afar. "Glad you came. Can you help us with the boards here? Otherwise I can barely bend over with my back." "Hi, Uncle," Cole responded, coming closer. "How are things after the storm?" Bill shrugged. "Yes, it's fine. We will spend half a day raking out algae and sand. How are you? Still, I heard that you are uneasy at home." Cole grinned, trying to remain indifferent. "It happens. My wife left. Next divorce." There was an effort in his voice not to show pain. Bill shook his head. I heard. My friend, life sometimes hurts, but remember, everything is for the better." They got to work. It was necessary to replace 5 boards that the storm had torn from the base, and also clean out some of the wet nets from several fishing boxes attached to the pier. Under the scorching sun, work became difficult. Sweat dripped down Cole's forehead, and his shirt stuck to his back. But in a sense, physical fatigue helped him forget for a while about mental torment. Every time Cole stopped for a moment to wipe away his sweat or take a sip of water, images of Hannah floated into his mind. Her smile with which she once greeted him in the morning, her eyes when they first kissed by the fire on the beach. That fire, it seemed like it happened in a past life. Now, instead of warm memories, reality. She left, preferring a stranger and a new life. Closer to noon, an old blue car pulled up to the pier. From it came Martin, the local soothsayer of storms. He stood leaning on his cane, watching Cole and Bill unload another pile of seaweed onto the cart. "Hey guys, maybe you need the old man's help." Martin grinned. "With a back like yours, buddy, I still have to lift you off the pier," Bill joked, groaning under the weight of the nets. Martin spat at his feet. "Come on, I just suggested. Okay, I need to go to the tackle shop. Fishing tomorrow." He winked ironically at Cole. "How are you, son?" "Yes, slowly," he answered, too tired to add details. Martin, taking the hint, turned around and walked away, muttering under his breath that women always leave at the wrong time. Apparently, rumors about Cole and Hannah's breakup have already spread throughout the city. About 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when the sun was high and the heat became unbearable, the work was finally completed. Cole took off his gloves and sat down on the side of the pier, dangling his legs towards the water. Bill sat down next to him and handed him a flask of water. "Drink, come on, don't get soggy," he said, smiling slightly. Cole took a couple of large sips, feeling the refreshing coolness running down his throat. They were silent for several seconds, looking at the water. Small schools of fish swam in the depths, maneuvering between the sunken remains of structures. "I think I need to leave here," Cole finally said, without taking his eyes off the light waves at the pier pillars. "Sure. Everything here is familiar to you, home, friends." Bill looked at him with slight concern. "Home." Cole smiled bitterly. "Now there are empty walls, memories, and a dog on a leash. But I feel like this doesn't hold me back anymore." Bill nodded understandingly. "If you really want to leave, then I found out about St. Morgan. There is an old hangar at the pier. The owner has been wanting to sell it for a long time. I have friends in those parts. He said that this hangar was in poor condition, but the price was low. Maybe it will suit you." "Oh yes, this is what I need." There was impatience in Cole's voice. "I'll throw myself into repairs and turn the hangar into a workshop for boats. I will probably live there for the first time." Bill patted him on the shoulder. "Well, I'm glad you have a plan. If you decide, tell me. I'll call a friend. He will help you arrange everything." "Thank you, Uncle Bill. I don't know what to do with the house. You can rent it out, you can sell it." Cole slowly raised his head and looked at the horizon. "There was a feeling inside me that leaving was like uprooting, but staying close to the trail of betrayal and separation was too painful. It's better to take a chance and start again," he decided, closing his eyes for a couple of moments to listen to the sounds of the waves. While Cole was contemplating the move and clearing up the storm, Hannah was home. Now she didn't show up. She moved to a rented apartment with a friend, Carla, who temporarily let her live in one of the rooms. And even more often, Hannah was next to Gavin Rolls. Hannah sat on the narrow bed in the room Carla had given her. Around there are boxes with scattered things and a couple of suitcases. She held in her hands a photograph of her and Cole during their first year together. Both have sparkling eyes, they laugh and hug. The sea and blue sky are visible in the background. Hannah remembered how happy they were then, how they dreamed of furnishing the house, making it a cozy nest. And yet something went wrong. Years of routine, her thirst for something more, disappointment at Cole's lack of grand plans. He was happy with a simple life, but it seemed to her that there was no romance in it, that she was simply cooking in a small town with no prospects. Hannah carefully placed the photo on the nightstand and closed her eyes. "Maybe I acted cruelly." The thought was beating. But then she remembered Gavin, his smile, expensive cologne, passionate kisses by the rocks, his words that life is short and you need to take everything from it. "Han," a voice was heard from behind the door. "Are you home?" It was Carla, returning from her shift at the hotel. Hannah opened the door slightly. "Hello, I'm here. I just thought. How was your day?" Carla entered and looked around the room. "Have you seen Gavin?" Hannah looked away. "Yes, we had lunch at Sandhouse. We talked about plans. He's leaving in a few days. He has business." "What next?" Carla looked at her carefully. "You didn't think about following him, did you?" "I don't know. He says if I want, I can join. He has connections there. He can arrange for me." Carla sighed and sat down on a chair in the corner. "Listen, friend, I don't interfere in your life, but be careful. I have seen how such temporary relationships sometimes end, especially if the man is clearly not serious." Hannah shrugged. "Maybe this is for the best. I don't want seriousness now. I'm tired of this feeling of being locked in. I just want freedom, emotions, something else." Carla frowned. "And Cole, he's not a bad guy. Maybe you could come to an agreement somehow." "It's too late to talk about this, Carl." There was bitterness in Hannah's voice. "I have already finally decided." "Yes," he himself said, "go if you want." "Go if you want." These words cut her from the inside, but she hid the pain behind external determination. Carla nodded. "Okay, time will tell. I'm just worried about you. You're a good person, and I wouldn't want you to get into trouble." "Thank you," Hannah smiled touchingly. I appreciate it. The next day, Hannah showed up for her shift as usual. She was still listed as a receptionist at the Tide Hotel, although there were rumors that she might quit or transfer to another branch. She didn't know for sure. The living room on the ground floor, where guests usually relaxed with magazines and coffee, was unusually deserted. A couple of elderly tourists from Kentucky were sitting on the couch discussing the rain forecast, and that was it. Hannah went down there between her duties to see if everything was okay. Seeing her, an elderly man asked if she knew where to go on an excursion. Hannah politely explained that it was not the season, and there weren't many attractions in the town other than the fishing museum, the lighthouse, and the famous rocky beaches. Taking a glance at the situation, Hannah suddenly noticed Gavin at the other end of the living room. He was sitting at the piano, running his fingers over the keys, although, in fact, it was not tuned properly. Seeing her, he smiled and beckoned with his finger. "What are you doing?" she asked, coming closer. "I'm stretching my fingers," he joked, pressing a couple of keys that produced false notes. "I'm bored, but do your managers mind if I sit here?" Hannah sat down next to him on an antique piano bench. Everything inside turned upside down again. Here he was, the source of her crazy energy and new sensations. There was a self-confidence in his eyes that both attracted and frightened her. "Have you decided everything about your departure?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Yes, I have a plane the day after tomorrow afternoon. I want to take you to dinner one more time before the flight. Or are you busy?" He bowed his head, brushing an imaginary speck of dust from his cuff. Hannah hesitated, glancing at her watch. "Today I have an evening shift. I can only do it after 9. "It will do." Gavin smiled, leaning slightly towards her. "I'll choose the place, right?" She nodded. A strange feeling arose inside again, joy that interest in her had not disappeared, and at the same time anxiety because she had no idea how long this new adventure would last. That evening, after Hannah had finished her shift, she and Gavin went to the Silver Harbor restaurant, one of the most fashionable establishments in the area. Previously, she could not even dream that she could go there without thinking about spending, but then Gavin grinned. "Consider it a gift." The waiter led them to a table by the window, which overlooked the night sea and the light of a lighthouse somewhere in the distance. The interior was decorated in a marine style, but with a pretense of sophistication: dark wood, dim lighting, neat compositions of shells on the walls. "Like?" Gavin asked as they sat down. "Very," Hannah admitted, looking around. She was a little embarrassed by luxury, especially after the simplicity of life with Cole, where they usually went to simple cafes or cooked together at home. Having ordered expensive wine and seafood dishes, they plunged into casual conversation. Gavin talked about his business projects, mentioned real estate deals, and there was a hint of vanity in his voice. Hannah nodded, trying to maintain interest, although sometimes it seemed to her that he was talking too much about himself. "And you, Hannah, what do you plan to do when?" "Well, you free yourself from all these shackles?" he asked at one point. "I don't know for sure. Maybe I'll try to find a job in a big city in the hotel business or tourism," she suggested. "I have a friend in Chicago, the owner of a hotel chain. I can recommend you if you want," he offered, shrugging his shoulders. Hannah felt her heart beating faster. Chicago? It's so far from Eivelyn Cove. New life. But something inside did not allow her to calmly plunge into her dreams. She imagined Cole, back in their shared home, with his sad gaze, and for a brief moment her heart sank with guilt. "Maybe," she answered hesitantly, taking a sip of wine. At some point, when Gavin went to the restroom, Hannah allowed herself to close her eyes for a moment. Pictures from a past life surfaced: how Cole was painting the kitchen, getting dirty with white paint, and she laughed, offering him to change his t-shirt. How they lay in an embrace on the sand after swimming at night. "Why do I remember all this? I chose to leave," I mentally reproached myself. Gavin returned and put his hand on her shoulder. "Hey, are you tired? Maybe we can go." "Yes, it's probably time," Hannah nodded, continuing to hide her doubts behind a smile. Leaving the restaurant, they sat in the car in complete silence. A gust of wind ruffled Hannah's hair as Gavin lowered the top of the convertible. It seemed to her that she was standing at the crossroads of her own destiny, but had not yet decided to turn in one direction. The next morning, Cole woke up with a heaviness in his chest. The night thunderstorm passed by, the air was filled with dampness, and wet tree crowns flashed through the window. Spike, his faithful dog, sat at the threshold, scratching his paw on the floor, as if reminding him that it was time to feed him and take him out. Previously, their mornings began with Hannah waking up Cole with the phrase, "Get up, fisherman, the sun is already shining," and he snorted, saying that it was still early, but playfully hugged her. Now he woke up alone, although only a few days had passed since she left. Everything reminded of her presence, especially small details. A mug with her favorite pattern, a forgotten comb on a shelf in the bathroom, a t-shirt that was once carelessly hung. "Okay, Spike, let's go out," Cole muttered, getting up. It was cloudy outside, but no longer pouring. He made a circle around the block, nodded to passing cars, but did not have the strength to communicate with anyone. When he returned, he poured food for the dog and coffee for himself. I caught my reflection in the mirror, dark circles under my eyes, a haggard face. "We need to pull ourselves together," he told himself. When Cole went to the mailbox to check his correspondence, a car pulled up next to him and Carla looked out. He was surprised. Carla is Hannah's friend, and it's unlikely that she would want to communicate with him now. "Hey, Cole," she called to him, turning off the engine. "Can we talk?" "Hello." "Of course," he shrugged, closing the box. Carla got out of the car, looking a little embarrassed. She looked around, as if checking for extra ears. "I wanted to say that this is none of my business, but Hannah is living with me now." "Only temporarily. I don't blame her or you," she just asked. Cole nodded, pretending that everything was fine. "Understand. Thank you for taking her in. Listen, I see that she is confused, and I see that you are suffering. She seems to be with Gavin." "I know," Cole responded briefly, trying to remain calm. "Don't worry, I'm not going to stop her from living the way she wants. We're done with her. It's just," Carla raised her voice slightly, "I'm afraid that she will make a mistake. Gavin will leave, and she will be in limbo." Cole shrugged. "It's her choice. I can't convince her by force. Understand. I just wanted to say that she asked to speed up everything with a divorce. She says that she doesn't want to hang on to the status of being married for a long time. I don't know how urgent this is." "Yes, lawyers have already called me." Cole smiled wryly. "You need to sign the papers, that's all." Carla sighed and was silent. "Sorry for butting in. You're probably angry at me, I'm her friend." "Angry?" Cole shook his head. "No, life is like that. Just be honest with her. She may realize all this later and regret it. I'll tell you. Thanks for understanding." Carla got back into the car and drove away, leaving behind only the quiet purr of the engine. Cole entered the house. "So she wants everything official and quickly," he thought as he walked into the living room. In the evening, Cole decided to take a break. He went down to the garage, where he had old photo albums and boxes with joint memories. A fishing net left over from previous seasons was gathering dust on the floor. In the corner stood a lonely chair that Hannah had once wanted to get rid of, calling it outdated. He sat down on this dusty chair and opened one of the boxes. At the very top were several photographs. Here he is, Cole, about 20 years old, smiling next to a small boat. Then he just started to get interested in the sea. Here is Hannah, still without a ring on her finger, in a colorful sundress, laughing, hugging his neck. Flipping through the photographs, he came across an old letter, a yellowed envelope without a stamp, on which was written Emilin. His heart skipped a beat. Emilin was his first love, who disappeared many years ago, leaving only a short note. He remembered how he suffered then, not finding an answer. Years have passed, and now he is experiencing a new loss. "Will I really wait all my life for those who leave?" Cole thought bitterly. He spent that evening in the garage, sorting through memories, from time to time throwing out some completely outdated papers and letters. It seemed to him that this was how he was symbolically cleansed. From the past or from pain. I didn't understand it myself. The next day, Cole received a call from a man named Ronnie Scott. This was the same acquaintance whom Uncle Bill promised to find. Ronnie owned a small real estate office in St. Morgan and was in the process of running a hangar on the beach. "Hello, Mr. Shepard. This is Ronnie Scott. Bill gave me your number. Said you were interested in buying or renting a hangar at St. Morgan's Wharf, correct?" "That's right," Cole replied, automatically glancing at his watch. "I would like to examine it and understand what condition it is in." "Great. I can arrange a meeting tomorrow if it is convenient for you. About 10 o'clock in the morning." Cole quickly figured that he had no urgent matters to attend to, and a distraction would be useful. After writing down the address, he thanked Ronnie and hung up. Immediately, I felt a strange feeling of relief, as if I had taken the first real step towards escaping Eivelyn Cove. The next morning, as the sky brightened a little, Cole put work gloves, some tools, a supply of water, and sandwiches in the pickup. The dog Spike was spinning at his feet, feeling that his owner was about to leave. "Sorry, old man, stay home for now." "I won't be long," Cole said, closing the gate. The journey to St. Morgan took about 3 hours via coastal highways. At first, the road went past familiar landscapes, fishing houses, eateries, a lighthouse, small groves. But gradually the view changed. Higher cliffs, steep banks, and dense forests appeared in places. All the way, Cole replayed the events of the last weeks in his head. Hannah, her betrayal, or at least her leaving for someone else, an empty house, the prospect of divorce. The memory was still fresh of how they exchanged short phrases during a chance meeting in the city, and he told her, "I hope your better life is worth my broken heart." Maybe it sounded too harsh, but at that moment he could not do otherwise. About halfway through the journey, he felt that he needed to stop and think about what was happening. I turned to a small roadside area with a view of the ocean. Turning off the engine, he went out and stood by the parapet, listening to the cries of the seagulls. The wind ruffled his hair, the sun broke through the clouds. "Damn, how quickly everything changed," he muttered, looking at the water, where the waves crashed against the rocks. "A month ago, I had a wife, albeit with a cooling relationship, but now, emptiness." I thought that there was still some part of myself that blamed her for leaving. Maybe he really was too simple, did not give her the emotions she dreamed of. But he loved her sincerely and was ready to do anything. He wanted to shout into the void, "What did I do wrong?" But the answer did not emerge. After standing for a while, he took a deep breath, wiped his sweaty palms on his jeans, got back into the pickup truck, and drove on to a new goal called St. Morgan. St. Morgan is a larger town than Eivelyn Cove, although not a metropolitan area. The pier here was much larger, accommodating small cargo ships, not just fishing boats. Some neighborhoods looked busier, with more cafes and shops for tourists. But the overall atmosphere remained maritime. The smell of salt water and fish markets was everywhere. Cole parked at a business whose name read Morgan Realty Buying and Selling Coastal Treasures. A man of about 40 stood on the threshold, wearing a white shirt and light trousers. He waved his hand when he saw Cole's pickup truck. "Mr. Shepard, I'm Ronnie Scott. Welcome," he said cheerfully as Cole got out of the car. "Hello, Cole. I'll be glad if it's you," Cole answered with relief. "Nice to meet you." Ronnie shook his hand and invited him inside the small office. There was a fan there, dispersing the stuffy air, and a pretty secretary was sitting at the table, who smiled at Cole. On the wall were photographs of various properties, from beach houses to warehouses. "So," Ronnie said, walking towards the table, "as far as I understand, you want to get into boat repair, right? And you are looking for a place for a workshop." "Exactly. We need something spacious, preferably near the water. We have an excellent option, a hangar right on the shore next to the fishing pier. True, he is already quite old, about 30 years old, if not more. But the seller is ready to give in on price. Let's go and have a look." They got into Ronnie's car, a white SUV, the air conditioner in which was working at full blast, saving them from the heat. The journey took no more than 10 minutes. We descended closer to the water, passing warehouses and rows of small cottages, and stopped at a massive hangar with faded gray paint on the walls. There were traces of rust on the doors, and there was rubbish lying around, broken boxes, ropes, pieces of wood. "Here he is," Ronnie announced, getting out of the car. "As you can see, we'll have to work hard on repairs, but the location is ideal, right next to the pier, convenient for boats." Cole walked forward, inspecting the building. Yes, it looks deplorable, rotten boards, a partially torn-off roof, damp inside. But the space is huge and could potentially make a great workshop. "What about the documents?" he asked, turning to Ronnie. "Everything is in order. The land is owned by the current owner, who lives in another state and has not used this place for a long time. He says he has no time for business anymore. He's ready to sell it inexpensively just to get rid of it." They entered the hangar. It smelled of seawater, mold, and old rags. Several rusty chains hung from the ceiling, and a pile of metal plates lay in the corner. Cole walked along the concrete floor, which was covered here and there with puddles that had seeped through the cracks. "Yes, there's work here," he muttered, "but I like it. I have hands, I know how to fix things, to build something unique." Ronnie smiled. "That's great. If you take it, I'm sure you can turn it into candy. In addition, there is a fishing community nearby, and there will be customers for boat repairs." Cole imagined working here early in the morning, listening to the crashing waves, smelling the wood and fresh paint, restoring boats. It was like a second opportunity in life. "Okay, I'm almost ready to buy. But I need to figure out whether I can live in one part of the hangar. Maybe we could build something like a room there?" he asked. "Why not? Communications can be failed, electricity and water will have to be installed separately, but the project is acceptable." They walked back into the light, and Cole looked back at the massive gate. Deep down, he had already made a decision. Yes, he wanted to take the risk. "Ronnie, consider me to agree. Let's get everything done as quickly as possible," he said, feeling strangely inspired. "Great. But it will be great if you think about it again," Ronnie answered judiciously. "Tomorrow I will send you a contract with details, and after you're okay, we can start the deal." Cole shook his hand. "Okay, I'm waiting. I hope this will be the beginning of a new stage." When they returned to the office and Cole got into his pickup truck, he felt a sudden surge of strength. "Finally, I have a real purpose." On the way back, he decided to stop at a small coastal restaurant, have a snack, and think about his next step. There, at a small table, he took out his phone and saw a missed call from an unfamiliar number. Calling back, he heard a female voice. "Hello, good afternoon. This is the law office of Bay and Rich. I need Mr. Shepard." "Yes, it's me." "Hannah Shepard has officially filed for an expedited divorce by mutual agreement. We are ready to set a hearing date next week. Is this right for you?" His heart skipped a painful beat. Expedited divorce, here it is, the final confirmation. Yes, it fits. "Thank you," he managed to say, trying not to betray the emptiness that gripped him. After hanging up, Cole stared at the phone screen for a long time. "Well, maybe this is even better," he said to himself. "Let's cut off all the ends and start from scratch." Eivelyn Cove was getting quieter as the summer season was winding down, tourists were leaving, and locals were preparing for the coolness of the fall. Cole's house stood almost untouched, except for the emptiness inside. Many of Hannah's things had disappeared, leaving half-empty shelves and closets. At some point, Cole realized that he needed to pick up some documents related to the car from Hannah, and also discuss the details of the division of property before going to a lawyer. Knowing that Hannah might be on shift at the hotel, he went there in the evening. The lobby of the Tidal Hotel was sparsely crowded. Another employee was standing behind the counter, and a couple of tourists were bored in the recreation area. Seeing that Hannah was gone, Cole approached Carla, who immediately became embarrassed. "Hello, Cole. She is currently helping a guest in the conference room. Do you want me to call you? Yes, please, we need to talk. A few minutes later, Hannah appeared in the hall, looking at him with some irritation. What are you doing here? She asked quietly. I need some documents for the car. And let's agree on the rest so as not to delay the lawyers, he replied. Maybe later. I have work. She crossed her arms over her chest. At that moment, Gavin came around the corner, apparently having heard familiar voices. A smile crossed his face when he saw Cole. Oh, hi, buddy. Decided to stop by and check it out. Cole tensed, trying to contain the outburst of anger caused by this buddy. Hannah looked embarrassed, but made no move to move away. There was a tense pause for several seconds. I'm not here for you, Cole answered Gavin coldly. I need to talk to my wife. Ex-wife, Gavin corrected, raising his eyebrows. Or soon to be an ex. Hannah frowned, feeling that the situation was heating up, and there were still people around in the hall, albeit not many. Behind the counter, Carla pretended to sort through papers, clearly not wanting to interfere. Cole, let's go outside, Hannah said quietly, closing her eyes as if in despair. They went out onto the hotel porch, where the sea breeze was a little cool after sunset. The lamps on the walls cast a soft yellow light on their faces. Cole clenched his fists and wondered for a second how theatrical this all looked. He remembered the moment when he first confessed his love to her many years ago on a similar porch in another place, how she laughed joyfully then and hugged him. Now she has a foreign look. What do you want? She asked, trying to appear calm. Documents for the car, and discuss again what things you want to take from home, so that there are no disputes later. You can keep the car, I don't pretend. And things. Let's do this. I'll take only personal ones, and I'll leave all the furniture to you, she said. Cole nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. Okay, understood. Then everything will become simpler. When do you want to pick up your things? Tomorrow morning, I'll come with Carla and pick up the rest. Silence covered them for a moment, like a heavy wave. Hannah lowered her eyes. Cole, I didn't mean for it to be so dramatic. We're just different people. Consider that we are not on the same path. Different. He smiled bitterly. This is true. But you know, it hurts to realize how easily you gave up everything. She frowned, feeling a flare of irritation. Easily. You don't know how difficult it was for me to decide. But I could no longer live in your world, where everything is simple and as if from the last century. Sorry, but that's how it is. Cole resisted the urge to snap. He saw how emotions were also seething inside her, but this could no longer stop him. She made her choice. It's not for me to convince her, he thought. Okay, that's all he said, turning to the car. Take your things, you have the keys to the house. I wish you good luck in your new world. He got into the pickup truck and drove away, and Hannah remained standing on the porch, feeling an internal breakdown. The wind blew her hair. Gavin arrived in time and put his hand on her shoulder and quietly asked, "Is everything okay?" And she didn't know what to answer. After all, when we leave, we always break something inside ourselves. The next morning, Hannah actually stopped by the house with Carla while Cole was away. They quickly collected her small belongings, some documents, and shoes. The house seemed empty and unusually quiet. Hannah briefly walked through the rooms as if saying goodbye. She saw the dog Spike, who looked at her with disbelief. Sorry, buddy, she said quietly, leaning over to pet him, but he just pulled away. It was as if he felt that the owner herself had abandoned her former life. Carla silently helped her carry her bags to the car. When everything was loaded, they both sighed. Hannah glanced around the yard again. Once upon a time, they barbecued here, laughed, and received guests. Now she was leaving for good. Let's go, she said quietly. Carla nodded and drove off. All the way to Carla's apartment, Hannah looked out the window, feeling a strange emptiness. I hope your best life is worth my broken heart. Cole's harsh words came back to her, and tears welled up in her eyes. But she sobbed and bit her lip, not letting her emotions take over. What was happening to Cole at that moment? He was on his way back from St. Morgan's, where he had signed a preliminary contract for the purchase of a hangar. The voices of lawyers were still heard in his head, but his heart was already drawn to the future, to the workshop, to a new project, to the thought that he would break out of this endless circle of memories. I can restore everything, he said loudly to himself, shifting into a higher gear. Let her live as she wants, and I will live my own way. Scraps from past years surfaced in his memory, the face of Emilin, who had disappeared from his life. For a moment he thought, where is she now? Is she alive? Maybe I'm destined to meet her. But he immediately dismissed it as madness. All he needs is drama. Deeth Road to the house seemed long, but upon arrival he saw that the gate was clean, nothing had been touched. Hannah had already managed to take everything she wanted. The dog rushed out, wagging its tail. Cole sat down and hugged Spike, trying to smile. Well, my friend, now it's just the two of us. The dog did not understand the meaning of the words, but felt that the owner was full of determination. St. Morgan greeted Cole with cool autumn air and damp fog hanging over the shore. The days grew shorter. The fog often lingered until midday, and the evenings darkened early, filling the streets with the ghostly flicker of lanterns. It was a long drive from Eivelyn Cove, but each time Cole felt his heart beat more confidently as he approached the place where he was about to start a new life. One day, he officially signed all the papers on the purchase of an old hangar by the sea. With Ronnie Scott as an intermediary, everything went smoothly. The owner, who lives in another state, was glad to get rid of the burden, which was only accruing taxes and required repairs. Cole received the keys, a heavy bunch with a bulky lock on the end. When he first entered there as a full-fledged owner, it seemed to him for a moment that he was stepping onto the stage of some theater where everything was still in disrepair. A vaulted ceiling, massive metal gates, piles of garbage, all this required hands, time and money. But Cole smiled. In this desolation, he saw great potential. He turned on a portable flashlight. There was no electricity in the hangar yet, except for a few old lamps hanging on rusty hooks. The light of the lantern revealed shabby walls with moisture stains and cracks, half-broken boxes, rotten ropes. In the corner was piled something that looked like fragments of a small boat, perhaps abandoned a long time ago by one of the previous tenants. Well, buddy, where do we start? Cole muttered, turning more to himself and this spacious room than to anyone in particular. First of all, he decided to do a little 5-minute cleaning. He moved away the bags of garbage, the tarpaulins scattered everywhere, and found in the far corner a rusty bucket full of old nails and some bolts. After half an hour of carefully hauling away the rubbish, he cleared a narrow path leading to the wall where he planned to install a workbench and tools. The cell phone rang off several times during the morning. Lawyers from Evelyn Cove were rushing the date of the divorce hearing, clarifying whether Cole was ready for the division procedure. Having no desire to delay, he replied that he agreed to come to any appointed date. Whatever is faster is better, he said to himself, figuring that the end of this month would be ideal because he was already traveling back and forth, and he needed to put an end to the past as soon as possible. Once upon a time, the thought of divorce seemed impossible. He was sure that marriage was forever. But now he accepted reality. No matter how painful this ending was, life moved on. Soon after signing the papers, Cole realized that it would be difficult to cope with all the repairs alone. He had carpentry and joinery skills, but the hangar needed some electrical work, waterproofing work, and foundation work. Luckily, a small fishing crew had settled down at a nearby pier, including a handyman named Justin, a tall African-American man with a good-natured smile. One day, seeing the hangar gates open, Justin came in to say hello, and they started talking. "Are you going to repair boats here?" Justin asked, looking around the space skeptically. "The place is just right, but there's a lot of work here." "That's right. I want to make a workshop, plus a small room for myself." "A room? Are you going to live here?" he asked, smiling widely. "Well, why not? The main thing is that the roof does not leak." Cole nodded somewhere upward, where the beams creaked loudly in the wind. Justin scratched the back of his head. "I can help with partitions. I used to do something similar. My hands grow from the right place. It won't be free, of course." I'm willing to pay a reasonable amount, Cole assured. But not right now, my finances are. In the process of being finalized, he smiled wryly, remembering that most of his savings went to the hangar itself and official procedures. I understand too, Justin laughed. But okay, I'll work on trust if you like me. They shook hands. So Cole had his first partner, ready to take on the reorganization of the internal space. Captivated by their plans, they walked around the hangar with a tape measure, wondering where it would be better to build a partition and how to lay out the lines for future electrical wiring. Late in the evening, having already left the hangar, Cole got into his pickup truck. A message from Carla flashed on the phone screen. "Hi, Cole. I know you probably don't want to tell me, but Hannah would like to get this furniture issue over with quickly. And besides, you have to sign another paper with a lawyer. Call." My heart sank unpleasantly. All this red tape again, he thought. Turning on his headlights, he drove along the narrow road leading from the industrial area to the center of St. Morgan. The night was dark, only rare streetlights illuminated the way. Quiet country music flowed from the radio speakers, and Cole suddenly realized that he wanted to be in silence. He turned off the receiver. During the trip to the motel where he spent the night, he mentally went through everything that had happened over these months. No one could have predicted such a dramatic collapse of family life. Well, he said out loud, if life throws you a challenge, you have to accept it. With that, he parked at the small Morgan Motel sign and headed to his rented room. While Cole was settling into life at St. Morgan's, Hannah was in her own emotional storm. Living with her friend Carla became a temporary refuge for her, but at the same time a source of discomfort. It seemed that she had neither a normal corner nor stability, and Gavin either disappeared for several days, leaving on business, or suddenly appeared with luxurious gestures. He gave gifts, offered to go to a restaurant. "Listen, darling, are you going to look for permanent housing?" Carla asked one evening when they were sitting in the kitchen. The stew was bubbling on the stove, the aroma of spices was in the air. "I think so," Hannah shrugged. "I just don't know how long I'll be here. Maybe I'll go with Gavin." "Will you leave?" "Where?" He was talking about Chicago. "Or he has an option in Miami. I haven't decided for myself. I understand that something needs to be done." Carla placed a plate of stew in front of Hannah and sat down opposite her. "And how do you see this future? Does he invite you with him, or is it just your fantasy?" "He didn't directly promise anything, but there are hints. It seems to me that everything is going to the point that he wants to take me with him. The divorce from Cole is almost finalized, so I'll be free." Carla played with her fork, choosing her words. "You know, I don't want to judge you, but be careful. Gavin is clearly not a homey guy. He loves freedom, money, and entertainment. Maybe he doesn't need a serious relationship." "Yes, but I'm not sure if I want a family right now," Hannah shrugged. "I'm tired of the role of a housewife. Maybe I just want to live for my own pleasure for a while." Hearing this, Carla nodded, but her gaze was anxious. "Okay, I hope everything works out for you. But if anything happens, know that my door is open, although you already live with me." Hannah smiled sadly. "Thank you, friend. I promise not to abuse it." A week later, Hannah noticed that she was delayed. At first, she didn't attach much importance to it, chalking it up to stress and life changes. But then strange symptoms began to appear: slight nausea in the morning, weakness. She decided to check everything with a pregnancy test. Carla is at work, Gavin is away again. Hannah is alone, sitting in the bathroom, holding a strip of dough in her hands. When the result appeared, my hands began to tremble. The test showed 2 stripes. My heart flooded with panic. What now? Fragmented thoughts floated into my head. Gavin's baby, or from Cole. The dates merge because leaving Cole, having an affair with Gavin, everything happened almost mixed up. Don't I even know who the father is? She felt panic clench her throat, and the walls of the bathroom feel like they were pressing on her. "No, no, not this," Hannah whispered, leaning against the sink. Breathing became intermittent. My mind told me that I needed to do an ultrasound, get tested, and talk to a doctor. But first, she needs to understand what to do with the news. The child ruins all plans. I wanted to leave, enjoy life, and not change diapers. An inner voice echoed, what if the child's father is Cole? From this thought, a strange warmth, and at the same time acute pain arose inside. But I've already filed for divorce, and it's all over with us. Or not. Asking these questions, she sat on the cold tiles, pressing her knees to her chest, and sobbed. She felt trapped by her own decisions. A few days later, she decided to tell Gavin, who had returned from a trip, about her pregnancy. Choosing a moment when they were sitting in a car outside one of the restaurants, she gathered her courage. Gavin, we need to talk, she began, squeezing her fingers. Sounds serious, he chuckled, looking up from the messages on his phone. What's happened? I'm pregnant. The pause lasted for several seconds, which seemed like an eternity. Gavin's face hardened, then broke into an annoyed grin. Pregnant? From me? He asked, and there was barely hidden aggression in his voice. Well, there are no other options, she lied, not wanting to go into details. Are you sure not? Maybe I don't know myself, whispered an inner voice, but she decided not to talk about it. Gavin leaned back in his seat and closed his eyes for a moment. So what now? Do you want me to walk you down the aisle? Or did you pay child support? She heard almost malicious sarcasm in his voice. Hannah's heart began to pound, bringing down her plans like a bomb. I don't know. I thought we'd decide together, she said, trying not to cry. Together? He smiled wryly, turning his head towards her. Look, I didn't intend to have a family. I lie for myself. If you decide to get pregnant, then it is your choice. But don't expect me to rush into fatherhood. Tears welled up in Hannah's throat. She saw coldness and even contempt in his gaze. Everything inside was shrinking. Am I really that mistaken about the person? Okay, she said, trying to look proud. I just thought we could talk about what to do. What should I do? He repeated and started the engine. I advise you to find a way to fix the situation, or educate yourself if you have such a desire. You can look for money, alimony is not an issue, but personally I won't bother with it. He made it clear that the matter was closed. Hannah ran out of the car in tears, realizing that her new, better life was crumbling right before her eyes. Gavin didn't even run after her, but only drove away, leaving Hannah standing on the side of the road. While Hannah struggled to cope with the pregnancy news and Gavin's reaction, Cole prepared for the upcoming court hearing. Lawyers said that it would be formal, since both agreed to a divorce. He felt that it was time to put an end to this, but somewhere in the subconscious shadows of regret surfaced. A few days before the hearing, Cole made a giant leap in repairs. Together with Justin, they brought sheets of drywall, beams, and insulation. They worked from morning to night, sometimes by the light of lanterns, in order to make it before the bad weather that the weather forecasters promised. A chilly wind blew through the cracks, but together they managed to build a simple partition dividing part of the hangar into a small room and the main workshop space. Justin helped drag in the bunk they'd bought at a garage sale. It was now Cole's bedroom. He, of course, joked that he was sleeping in a box in a warehouse, but in his heart he was happy about the changes. Cole has repeatedly mentioned his plans to open a full-fledged repair base here, where boats, powerboats, and maybe even small yachts will be repaired. He had already posted notices in the port of St. Morgan inviting boatmen to apply for services. A couple of people called and asked about prices. Not all at once, he told Justin, but you feel that this is the beginning of something real. One evening, when work was over and Justin had left, Cole walked along the shore, lighting the way with a flashlight. The air was cold, salty, the stars were barely visible through the low clouds. Suddenly, he heard a quiet melody someone was humming with a guitar nearby. It turned out that there, by the metal buoy, a man was sitting, covered with an old blanket, strumming strings, saying something sad in an undertone. Cole came closer. I recognized the man. It was Blaine, an old acquaintance from Eivelyn, Cove, who had once played at a local diner and then disappeared somewhere. Blaine, Cole called out. "Hey, who's there?" The guitarist responded, narrowing his eyes. "Cole, come on. I never would have thought that I would meet you here." They hugged each other, reminiscing about old days. It turned out that Blaine also rushed around the coast in search of himself, played in bars, and sometimes lived with random acquaintances. "What are you doing here?" Cole asked, sitting down next to him on a stone. "Yes, I'm just walking, trying to find inspiration for music. I'm already tired of wandering around. And you?" "I bought a hangar and will repair boats. It's a long story." "Sounds cool." "I myself had a dream to equip a studio, but the dream didn't go further." They looked at the black water in silence for several minutes. The lights of fishing boats flickered in the distance. Blaine quietly plucked the strings, and Cole suddenly remembered the nightly gatherings around the fire when they were almost teenagers, and Emilin sat next to them, listening to their songs. It was as if an old feeling had pushed into his heart. Cole lowered his head without continuing the topic. He was suddenly flooded with memories of the one he loved in his youth, Emilin, who had disappeared from his life many years ago. He himself was surprised that on such an evening he suddenly remembered her. Maybe it's all because his divorce from Hannah exacerbated his longing for those who also once abandoned him, or because he was subconsciously looking for true love that he missed. Blaine seemed to be reading his mood. If you are looking for someone, try to keep looking. Suddenly, you stumble upon a familiar face in the most unexpected place. After all, the world is smaller than it seems. They talked a little longer, talked about life, then went their separate ways. Cole returned to the hangar, feeling a strange mixture of sadness and hope. Perhaps the past and the future will somehow intersect, he thought, falling asleep on his narrow bed. The day Cole had subconsciously been waiting for and dreading arrived: the formal divorce hearing. The small courtroom in Campbell County, which included Eivelyn Cove, looked like a typical small-town courtroom. Wooden benches, a S flag in the corner, the click of boots on polished parquet floors. Hannah came with a lawyer, Cole came alone, and his lawyer had to drive up from another area. They didn't speak, just nodded briefly in recognition. Gavin wasn't there, and why would he be? The judge, a woman of about 50 with a tired but friendly face, quickly went through the documents. Having learned that the couple has no children together, there are no major claims on the property, the house remains with Cole, and Hannah refused the share, taking only a small compensation. The judge quickly got to the point. "So, both parties agree to the divorce?" she asked, looking over her glasses. "Yes, Your Honor," Cole and Hannah said almost simultaneously. The judge nodded. She asked Cole to sign in several places, confirming his agreement. Then Hannah. The procedure took no more than 10 minutes, and having announced the formula for divorce, the judge smiled, adding the formal, "I wish you both success in your new life." After the hearing, they went out into the corridor. Hannah's lawyer walked away on the phone, giving her time. Cole stood at the window, looking out at the parking lot where he had parked his car. They both understood that there were no more family ties, no husband and wife, everything was in the past. "Well, that's all," Hannah broke the silence. Her voice trembled, as if she did not fully believe what had happened. "Yes," Cole answered quietly, still looking at the street. "I hope you find what you were looking for. Listen." She took a step closer. "I wanted to say, forgive me if you can. I know I hurt you." Cole turned around, looking into her eyes. In them, he saw sadness and confusion, but no longer saw love. "I forgive. Seriously." The words were not easy for him, but he felt that he needed to free himself from the resentment. "If you ever want to talk, I don't know, right?" Hannah swallowed the lump in her throat and lowered her gaze. She did not dare to talk about pregnancy because she was not sure of paternity. Why ruin his life when we just got divorced, she thought. "Maybe I'll do that," she whispered. "Good luck, Cole." They parted like two shadows. Cole walked out into the bright daylight where passers-by were hurrying about their business, unaware that he had just ended an entire chapter of his life. Sitting in the pickup truck, he allowed himself a moment of weakness. A few tears rolled down his cheek, but immediately wiped them away. Go ahead, he said to himself. Several days passed after the trial. Cole, now free of his previous status, continued to settle in St. Morgan. One afternoon, he went to the local pharmacy. He needed antiseptic to treat a splinter he got during renovation work. The pharmacy was located on the first line of the old street, a showcase with a slightly faded sign. Inside, there were rows of shelves with medicines and cosmetics. The girl pharmacist, seeing him, asked how to help, and Cole named the right remedy. While she was looking on the shelf, he looked around mechanically, and suddenly his heart began to beat deafeningly. A woman with light blonde shoulder-length hair stood at the stand with vitamins. She looked a little haggard, but the familiar features of her face made him freeze. It was Emilin, the same Emilin who once disappeared from his life without explanation. She noticed his gaze and also froze, her eyes widening in surprise. It seemed as if time had stopped. Cole, she breathed, swaying as if gathering her courage. He couldn't believe he was seeing her here in St. Morganess. It seemed that the memories of her were in the distant past. She looked down at the packet of vitamins she was holding in her hands. Emilin, was all he said, blinking in amazement. I didn't expect that we... He paused, not knowing what to say. The pharmacist returned with a bottle of antiseptic and handed it to Cole. Please, this is for you. Need anything else? Ah, no, thank you, he answered absent-mindedly, keeping his eyes on Emilin. Can you wait for me? Emilin nodded slightly. Cole paid and went outside with her. The street wind ruffled her hair, and she clutched the bag to her chest. Inside it were vitamins and some other drug. Do you live here? He asked in a half-whisper, as if afraid to frighten away the vision. Yes, for several months now, she answered, still not daring to look him straight in the eyes. I needed to change my place. It's clear. I recently moved here myself. How are you doing? Emilin sighed, squeezing the handles of the bag. Her voice was quiet. I'm ill. I have multiple sclerosis. The diagnosis was made many years ago, and then I just didn't want to be a burden. That's why she left everyone. I thought it would be better this way. Cole's heart clenched in painful response. He remembered snippets of rumors that she had serious health problems, but then no one really explained it. She disappeared, leaving a short note, and he then dreamed that it was all a mistake, that she would return. I'm sorry, was all he could say, unable to find other words. Forgive me for leaving without telling you. I was in despair, her voice trembled. I was afraid that I would ruin your life with my problems. Cole slowly reached out his hand, wanted to touch her shoulder, but did not dare. So many years have passed, and she is clearly not in the best shape. You wouldn't ruin my life, he said, looking into her tired eyes. I loved you. I know, she breathed, and tears glistened on her eyelashes. They stood at the entrance to the pharmacy. Passers-by occasionally glanced at them, but the world around them seemed to have disappeared. Cole wanted to ask her about everything, about these years of separation, about treatment. But I understood that right on the street was not the time or place. Maybe, let's talk in a calmer place, he suggested. I know a cafe here, next to the pier. Emilin nodded, trying to contain her emotions. Fine, I have some time. In a cafe that smelled of coffee and pastries, they sat at a table by the window. Emilin ordered herbal tea, Cole ordered black coffee. At first, they talked about trifles. What kind of city is St. Morgan? How things are going with work? How rainy the local autumn is? But soon the conversation turned to the main thing. Emilin admitted that when she learned about the diagnosis, she fell into depression. She didn't want Cole to waste his life on a sick woman. I tried to get treatment in another state, lived with some charity organization that helped people with multiple sclerosis, then moved here when things got a little better. But why didn't you come back? Didn't right? Cole asked quietly. I was afraid that I would still disappoint you. And I thought you were already happy, married. A bitter smile touched her lips. It turns out that it was so. So, how's your wife? He lowered his eyes, hugging his cup with his palm. Already ex. We got divorced. She cheated on me. We couldn't save everything. Emilin turned to the window, pursing her lips slightly. Sorry, I didn't know. Nothing. Now I'm getting used to it here. I have a hangar on the shore. I will repair boats. They were silent for a few seconds, sipping their drinks. Mixed feelings were seething inside Cole. Pain for her diagnosis, joy that she was alive and standing in front of him, and fear that everything might be too late. Listen, he finally said, looking into her eyes, I don't care that you're sick. I don't want to lose you again. Maybe not like it used to be, but let's at least communicate. I'm ready to help. Emilin's gaze became moist. She nodded weakly. I don't know how much longer I have a healthy life, but, okay, let's try to talk more often. They exchanged phone numbers, although deep down they understood that everything was much more complicated than just calling. This was a meeting after years missed due to fear and understatement, but perhaps it is precisely such sudden meetings that change destinies. The meeting with Emilin stirred up long-forgotten emotions in Cole. He couldn't get her tired, but still radiant, warm gaze out of his head. The work in the hangar was still in full swing, and he continued to move forward, as if gaining internal motivation. But the past was increasingly knocking on his thoughts. The next week, Emily gathered her strength and came to Cole's hangar. It was a kind of experiment. Would she cope? Would she be able to walk for a long time? Multiple sclerosis sometimes provoked numbness in her legs and weakness. But she smiled when she saw Cole's hard work transforming the abandoned building. Here I want to put a large workbench for processing boat parts, he explained, pointing to one of the walls where sheets of plywood were already attached. And here there will be a lifting mechanism. Impressive, Emilin admitted, looking at the results of his work. I would never have thought that it could be cozy here. Well, cozy is a big word, but I'm trying, he chuckled. She noticed that in the far corner, the hangar was divided by a partition, behind which, apparently, was a living area. Cole led her inside. There was a modest cot, a bedside table, and a lamp. There are several photos on the shelf, including old pictures of Cole with his parents, with his friend Bill, and even one from his wedding with Hannah, but he was about to put it away, but he didn't have time. Sorry, He hesitated when he saw Emilin looking at the wedding photo. Nothing, everything's fine, she answered softly. This is part of your history. Her own story is one of illness, loneliness, and flight. And now they stood side by side, realizing that they had missed so much in each other's lives. Cole touched her shoulder, feeling a warm wave in his chest. She's here, she's not disappearing. Emilin, he said quietly, I don't want to rush things. I know that you treat your illness with caution. But maybe let me help you, take you to procedures if necessary. I don't know, she lowered her gaze. I don't want you to think again. Something for yourself. I'm already thinking, he admitted, feeling his heart beating faster. I think about how damn bad I felt when you left. And I don't want to lose you again. Emilin closed her eyes. Tears appeared on her cheeks. Cole, I'm scared. The disease can progress. No one can give guarantees. No one gives guarantees in life, he answered, taking her hand. Did Hannah and I have any guarantees when we got married? Life is a risk. She took a shaky breath, leaning against his chest. He hugged her carefully, trying not to frighten the moment. It seemed that the surrounding hangar had disappeared, only the two of them, old feelings and new fears. But I will endure everything just to be close, he whispered mentally. That same evening, when Cole was already feeling a surge of energy, dreaming about how he would take care of Emily, the phone rang shrilly. An unfamiliar number appeared on the display. He answered and heard Carla's excited voice. Cole, I'm sorry to bother you. I'm calling because Hannah has disappeared. She left and left a note that she was flying somewhere. She feels bad and has been crying for the last few days. I think there's a problem with Gavin. Disappeared. Where could she go? Cole tensed, not expecting news from his ex-wife. Don't know. I just wanted to let you know in case she calls you. Or shows up. I think she was talking about Miami, but I'm not sure. Cole sighed, feeling the old feelings of responsibility and regret pricking through the pain. He is no longer obligated to take care of her. She has chosen her own path. But it's still unpleasant to know that she's in trouble. Got it, Carla. Thank you for saying that. If I find out anything, I'll let you know, he replied, trying to understand how he felt. After hanging up the phone, he thought, maybe Hannah really flew off to Gavin, or did you just decide to hide? However, deep down he understood that this was no longer his battle. He has his own life, his own feelings for Emilin, his own plans. But echoes of the past will still echo. Late in the evening, he was sitting in the living corner of the hangar. Behind the thin wall, the quiet sound of the wind could be heard. He mentally replayed the events. The divorce was finalized, the reunion with Emily was beginning, and Hannah seemed to be sinking deeper into problems. I guess that's life, he concluded. You can't save everyone around us. Everyone makes their own choice. A picture appeared before his eyes. He and Emilin were walking by the shore. She leaned on his hand so as not to fall during an attack of weakness. They laugh and breathe the sea air. Let illness and shadows of the past hang over them, but together they are stronger. I'll leave even if she asks, Cole said to himself, peering at the dark ceiling. This time I won't run away, I will fight. His decision was firm, and on this wave of firmness he plunged into sleep, full of vague, but no longer so painful dreams. Tomorrow a new chapter awaited now joint, with all the risks and hopes. It's been about 2 weeks since Cole and Hannah's divorce trial. For some, such a period is negligible to heal mental wounds, but for others it is enough to feel the first glimpses of freedom. Cole was returning from the pier to his hangar, holding under his arm a bundle with new order lists and paper advertisements. He decided to get serious about promoting his boat repair shop. The morning turned out to be typically coastal. A damp, cool breeze made its way under the windbreaker. The smell of algae mixed with salt water refreshed the mind. Cole had a lot of thoughts running through his head, from accounting issues to romantic ones. He had already seen Emilin several times these days. Either they were just drinking tea in a cafe, then she went into the hangar, brought him sandwiches, and he proudly showed her his success in installing partitions and installing lighting panels. After so many years, Cole felt with her as if life had rewinded, but at the same time it had taken a completely new path. Hello, boss, he heard a familiar voice. Justin, his partner, the same handyman from the pier, poked his head out of a pile of construction boards and plywood stacked on pallets. Today, he had already attached several slats to the western wall of the hangar, trying to strengthen it against possible leaks. Hi, how are you? Cole raised his palm in greeting. Quite. I just noticed that there are cracks at the roof level, so it will be necessary to either patch them with metal or install a rubber seal. As you say, we'll decide on the budget. I would prefer a sealant. It will be cheaper and faster. They moved deeper into the hangar, talking about future plans, expanding the work area, building a small laboratory for testing boat engines, and perhaps also setting up a coffee corner for clients. Yes, they are not yet large enough to think about the comfort of visitors, but Cole believed that everything was possible. While Justin was working on the roof, Cole went into his living area, a small room behind a partition, to sort out documents. The phone vibrated, flashing the name Carla. Since the day she reported that Hannah had disappeared, they had not spoken on the phone. Yes, Carla, Cole responded, feeling slightly alarmed. Hello? How are you? The girl's slightly exhausted voice could be heard. Apparently, she was at work at a hotel or something. Fine. Everything is fine here. We are repairing the hangar. It's clear. Listen, about Hannah. There was a pain in my chest. Cole sighed heavily, bracing himself for bad news. What's wrong with her? She didn't call me, said Carla, but her acquaintances saw her at the Miami airport. They say she looked depressed and was only carrying hand luggage. I don't know anything else. Just wanted to let you know. Just in case. Suddenly, she will turn to you. Looks like she really went south, Cole thought. He remembered Gavin mentioning Miami as one of his travel options. Perhaps Hannah went looking for him or hoped to start a new life in the big city. I understand, thank you. I don't know what she needs anymore, to be honest, he said out loud. She made the decision herself. I understand, but all this is exciting. If you suddenly find out something, let me know. Fine. After hanging up the phone, Cole felt a heap of emotions in his soul. It would seem that their destinies had already diverged, but the thought that Hannah was pregnant, even though he did not know this fact for sure, plus her erratic movements, all this was alarming. On the other hand, he was now officially divorced, and he wanted to focus on a new chapter in his life. In the evening, when the sound of hammers in the hangar had already died down and Justin had gone home, Cole went to meet Emilin. They agreed to meet at a small restaurant, Sea Irisa, a cozy place that served good seafood dishes. Emilin arrived a little earlier, having already taken a table by the window. Hello, she smiled timidly. A light scarf was draped over her shoulders, and her hair was tied into a neat bun. There was a slight shadow under her eyes, but her smile made her face brighter. Cole sat down opposite him, feeling the familiar fluttering in his chest. They each ordered a bowl of thick chowder and salad. While they were waiting, they chatted quietly about little things, how her day went, what was new at his construction site. But they soon moved on to more personal topics. Tell me how you cope with the disease, Cole asked quietly, carefully choosing his words so as not to touch a sore chord. I have a course of medications that slow down the progression of multiple sclerosis. She took a sip of water. I also go once a week for small physio sessions. I don't always help myself when fatigue sets in, but I try to stay in shape. She hesitated, then added, I don't want you to think I'm, well, weak. I used to run away precisely because of this fear. I was afraid of becoming a burden, afraid that you would give up all your dreams for me. No, Cole shook his head firmly. I wouldn't do that. Besides, look, the dream has come true anyway. I have my own workshop, and I'm glad that you can be nearby. By the end of dinner, they were holding hands under the table, smiling at each other like teenagers. The waitress looked at them with a warm smile when Cole asked for the bill. Coming out of the restaurant, Emilin stumbled slightly, and he immediately grabbed her arm, feeling how she was trembling. It's okay, I'm just dizzy, she breathed. He gently escorted her to his car. Shaking internally, Cole realized that the disease could strike unnoticed at any moment, but he was determined not to be deterred by it. On the way to Emilin's house, they did not turn on the music, but spoke fragmentarily. Cole, she suddenly said as he parked at her small rented house, if it happens that my condition worsens, promise that you will not sacrifice yourself out of pity. What strange thoughts, he said in surprise. I don't call it sacrifice. I want to be near you because... He paused for a moment, feeling that he needed to say out loud what was spinning in his heart, because I love you. I always loved it that way. She burst into tears almost instantly, covering her face with her hands. He reached out and hugged her. For the first time in many years, they said this word out loud, love. I love you too, came her quiet answer through her tears. I always loved her. It was just stupid fear and illness that paralyzed me. I'm sorry for making you suffer. They sat like that for several minutes, and then he quietly suggested, maybe you can have dinner at my hangar tomorrow. Of course, there is no elegant atmosphere there, but at least we will be together. With pleasure, she smiled through her tears. Cole left that night feeling like his heart had found its footing. He understood that there were many obstacles ahead, but he had a goal to be close to this woman, whom, it seemed, fate had brought into his life again. A new day has come. Since early morning, Cole had been tinkering with some kind of soured boat motor, which made a terrible roar when starting up. And during the break, he managed to check his mail. There were several letters from clients wanting to know prices, and one short letter without a return address, which contained only a few lines. If you get this, know that I'm fine. Don't look for me, I'll be fine. Thank you for everything. Sorry for everything. X. The letter X clearly alluded to Hannah. Cole let out a choked breath. My heart skipped a beat. Is she okay? Or does he just write like that? There was no date, no postmark, but judging by the writing style, she actually wrote it herself. Well, bad news? Justin asked, noticing Cole's changed face. No, just news from the past, Cole muttered, trying to remain calm. He had no idea that Hannah was pregnant. The letter did not provide any leads. However, consciousness stubbornly returned to thoughts. Why did she write, "Don't look for me"? Maybe there really is a secret. But one way or another, Cole understood that now his resources were spent on setting up the workshop and taking care of Emilin. If Hannah chose to disappear, it was her choice. In the afternoon, a light but tedious rain fell on the street. Cole delayed the work because without a proper roof in the repair area, water was leaking inside. He called Emilin and offered to have dinner with him. She agreed, saying that she would bring fruit. By 7 in the evening, the rain had not stopped, turning into solid gray threads. The hangar was still dry, but cool, so Cole lit the wood-burning camp stove that he had installed in one corner to warm up the room at least a little. This was a temporary measure until normal heating was installed. Emilin arrived under an umbrella, a little wet from below, but smiling. "Wow, you're feeling romantic here," she joked, noticing that several candles were burning in the living nook. Electricity was not yet supplied to all points. "I wanted to make it cozy," Cole admitted, putting a plate of warm rice and baked fish on the table. "How was your day?" "Okay, I managed to run out and buy some apples and pears." She showed the bag. They sat down to dinner. The conversation flowed easily. Emilin even laughed when Cole talked about one curious client who demanded a magical repair of a boat motor in half an hour. But at some point her face suddenly darkened, and she grabbed the edge of the table. "Are you okay?" Cole immediately leaned towards her. "My head and my legs are a little numb," she breathed. "Please don't panic. This is an attack. It will pass now." He helped her carefully get up and sit on the small sofa that stood nearby. You could see how she was trembling all over and could hardly move her right leg. Cole felt fear constricted his throat. This was the first time he had witnessed the manifestation of the disease so close. "Do you need any medicine?" he asked, trying to remain calm. "I have capsules in my bag. Help me," she whispered. He immediately rushed to her bag, found the bottle, read the instructions, and, pouring water into a glass, helped her swallow the capsule. She lay there for several minutes, closing her eyes, trying to breathe deeply. Cole sat down next to her, carefully placed her legs on his lap, and began to gently massage them. He wanted to somehow ease her pain. "I'm sorry," Emilin whispered when she managed to speak. "I didn't want you to see me like this." "Quiet," he shook his head. "Everything is fine. I'm here." After about 10 minutes, the attack began to subside, judging by the easing of tension in her body. But Cole noticed how exhausted she was. Her face turned pale. Her eyes were full of tears. He helped her take a few steps and sat her down on the bed. "You need to rest," he said, covering her with a blanket. "Stay here, spend the night, don't go anywhere in the rain." "But how?" She wanted to object, but she didn't have the strength. "I'll sort it out myself. Tomorrow I'll take you home or to a procedure if necessary. Don't worry." She looked at him gratefully, and a minute later she fell asleep, tired and exhausted. Cole sat down at the foot of the bed, holding his head in his hands. This is what harsh reality looks like, he thought, and yet he felt no self-pity, only a strong desire to be a support for her. The night passed restlessly. Cole woke up several times to see Emilin tossing and turning anxiously and moaning softly in her sleep. He stroked her hand, whispering that everything was fine. When dawn broke outside the window, she was already sleeping more peacefully, and he was sitting leaning against the wall. Feelings of love and fear mixed in his heart. It might be difficult, but damn it, I won't leave her again. With these thoughts, he drove away memories of Hannah, of her letter. That story is over, he told himself. Emilin is what is important now. When everything seemed to have settled down in the hangar, and Emilin was feeling better a couple of days after the attack, Cole's phone suddenly rang with an unknown number with the area code 305 Miami. He hesitated whether to answer the phone or not. But in the end, I decided to answer the third call. "Hello," he said warily. "Hello," Hannah's voice was heard, quiet, almost inaudible. Hannah, Cole couldn't believe his ears. "You're in Miami, right?" "Yes," she sobbed. "I don't know who else to call. Are you all right?" He felt his heart begin to pound with anxiety. "Nothing's wrong. I really regret a lot of things, and I don't know what to do. I have no money, Gavin completely abandoned me, and she faltered. Cole was silent, stunned by this outburst of emotion. City horns could be heard in the distance. Maybe she was standing on some busy street. "Why are you calling me?" he asked, trying not to sound too rude. "We decided everything." "Yes," she whispered. "Sorry, just—" Suddenly, she passed out. The connection is lost. Cole stood with the phone in his hands, not knowing what to think. Tried to call back, the subscriber is unavailable. "So what now?" he scrolled. A guess was spinning in his head. "Perhaps she is desperate. She has nowhere to live. But how can I help?" Later that evening, Cole's phone rang again. This time, the name Carla came up. "Cole, I need your help," she blurted out. "Hannah called me and said she was in Miami, pregnant, and didn't know what to do." Pregnant? He dropped the screwdriver he was holding from his hands. "I don't know all the details," Carla answered, "but I assume that the child may be yours." Or from Gavin. She's not sure herself, it seems. For several seconds, he listened to the rumbling in his head, as if everything had been cut short. Pregnant. What if the child is mine? The thought struck like thunder. And what does she want? He squeezed out. "She says she has neither work nor housing. She's panicking. She asks for money. I don't know what to answer her." "Damn," Cole breathed, feeling everything inside him sink. "Okay, I'll contact her, although I'm not sure." Having finished the conversation, he leaned against the wall, trying to catch his breath. "If the child is mine, I can't just turn away," he reflected. But what about Emilin, with whom his feelings flared up again? Is this baby the result of Hannah's deception? Or maybe not. Cole knew he needed to tell Emilin the truth before he did anything. He invited her to dinner at a simple cafe. When they sat down at the table, he didn't beat around the bush. I need to talk to you about Hannah. I found out that she might be pregnant." "What?" Emilin nervously squeezed the napkin. "From you?" "Not sure. She herself is not sure, apparently. Maybe from Gavin. But she disappeared in Miami and now suddenly asks for help." He felt that Emilin tensed. Her face darkened. "What are you going to do?" she asked in a slightly trembling voice. "Don't know. If there's a chance it's my child, I can't just ignore it. In the end, the child is not to blame for anything. I thought about going and figuring it out on the spot, talking to Hannah." He looked at her pleadingly, hoping for understanding. Yes, he just confessed his love to her, and now he's ready to go to another city because of his ex-wife. The situation is absurd, but real. "Cole," Emilin closed her eyes for a moment. I can't stop you. This is really important, but I'm scared that you won't come back." You don't understand." He reached for her hands. "I love you and will definitely come back. But I repeat, I cannot abandon the child if he is suddenly mine. I need to clear things up." She responded with a sad nod. "Okay," she said quietly, "I won't bother you. I'm just afraid that this will drag you back into her life." "No," he assured, "my heart belongs to you. But duty to a possible child is different. I hope you understand." Cole stayed up all night, feverishly looking through the tickets. He contacted Carla and clarified the latest news, but she said that Hannah was getting in touch in fits and starts. Finally, we somehow managed to find out in which area of the city it was approximately located. "You know," he told Justin in the morning, "I'll have to go away for a couple of days. I'll go to Miami. There, personal matters." "Okay, boss, don't worry. I'll continue working on the walls," the partner replied. And Cole threw several things, documents and money savings, into his backpack. Who knows how much helping Hannah might cost. Before leaving, he called Emilin. "I'm leaving tonight. I already took the ticket. Take care of yourself, okay?" If so, you have my phone number. Okay, she answered, and there was concern in her voice. Please be careful and come back. I promise. He placed Spike, his dog, in the care of a neighbor on the pier, who kindly agreed to keep an eye on him. And so at sunset, I left for the airport. Confusion reigned in his soul. Why was he rushing to save the woman who had cheated on him? But perhaps his unborn child really is there. Miami heat Cole in the face with heat and humidity, a stark contrast to the cool coastal environment of St. Morgan. Sweat ran down his back as he walked out of the airport, clutching only a small backpack. There was a noise in my head. Where to look for Hannah? According to scraps of information from Carla, she lived somewhere in a cheap motel on the outskirts. With the help of a taxi driver, whom Cole generously persuaded to drive to the desired area, he finally found the very motel. Short one-story buildings, peeling paint, cheap neon, cracks in the asphalt. He entered the cramped lobby, where the administrator sat at the counter with a tired look. "Do you know that a girl named Hannah Shepherd lives here?" he asked, naming the signs. "Room 12, the administrator responded, sighing, "but she didn't pay for the next day, so she can leave at any time." Cole walked down the shabby corridor, thoughts pounding in his head. What will I see? Will she be happy, or is there another scandal? The door to room 12 was ajar, and he knocked. "Hannah, it's me, Cole." A weak voice came from inside. "Events." He walked in and saw Hannah sitting on the bed, hugging a pillow. She looked even thinner than before, her eyes red from crying. On the bedside table, there are a couple of paper glasses, some kind of fast food. There are things scattered everywhere. "Hello," he said quietly, closing the door behind him. "Hello," her lips curled, as if she didn't believe he was here. He sat down on the chair opposite. "Tell me everything. I know you're pregnant." "Yes. The term is about 4 months," she whispered, lowering her gaze to her stomach, which was not yet very noticeable. "I don't know from whom, from you or from Gavin." Cole clenched his fists. I wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come. Finally, he squeezed out, "Why didn't you take a paternity test?" "I have no money." Hannah laughed bitterly through her tears. "Gavin left me, said he wasn't going to pay for anything, and disappeared. I thought he would really take me somewhere, but it turned out. You know it yourself." There was a painful silence. Cole looked at her, remembering all the insults, betrayals, but also the moments when they were family. Maybe she's really confused. "Okay, what do you want now?" he asked finally, trying to speak evenly. "I should know." "I don't want to lose my pregnancy," Hannah admitted, barely audible. "But I don't know what to do. I have no stability, no job, I feel terrible." And suddenly she burst into tears, dropping her head in her hands. "I'm sorry. I acted like a stupid girl, ruined our marriage, and now I'm in trouble. I don't ask for your forgiveness, but I'm scared." Cole realized that no matter how much he wanted, he couldn't just leave, leaving her here. Perhaps this child is really mine, he thought. And even if not, she's completely desperate. "Okay," he said quietly, "let's first figure out how to find out who the father is. There are prenatal DNA tests. I'm willing to pay if it's possible to make them here in Miami. And I will help you return to a safer place." Hannah looked up in disbelief. "Seriously? Are you ready to spend money on me? After everything I've done, the child is not to blame for anything. If it's my child, I take responsibility. If not, we'll think about it." She nodded, wiping away her tears. Cole rented a car for a couple of days and took Hannah to a private clinic where they performed prenatal tests, including a non-invasive paternity test. The procedure was not cheap, but he paid with his card. The feeling of déjà vu and absurdity did not leave him. This is not how I imagine my return to my ex-wife, he thought. At the clinic, a doctor examined Hannah and took blood samples from her and Cole. The results should have been reported in a few days. Cole decided to stay in Miami. I rented a simple room nearby to keep an eye on Hannah. After all, she was in the second trimester of pregnancy. There was a lot of stress, and living in such a motel was dangerous. He bought her food every day, took her on short walks, trying to maintain distance. They no longer had a romantic relationship, and she understood that. But both felt that life had brought them together at this point to resolve an important issue, the fate of the child. On the third evening, they sat in a small park under the palm trees, watching the sunset over the ocean. Hannah was eating a sandwich, clearly hungry after constant bouts of nausea. Cole silently looked at the waves, which seemed fiery in the light of the setting sun. "Cole," she suddenly called, I'm sorry. I kept saying that you are too simple, that I need more. But it turned out that I myself was chasing an illusion and found nothing." "I forgave you a long time ago," he answered, smiling slightly. "It's just a pity that everything happened exactly like that." "You know," she swallowed, "if the child is yours, do you want me to come back to you? We would raise together." These words pierced him with an unpleasant chill. "Go back" sounded threatening, because he already loved someone else. "No," Cole said quietly but confidently. "I'm sorry, Hannah, but our time is up. I will help you. Together we will find a solution for the child, but I don't want to renew the marriage." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she nodded understandingly. "Understand. It's my own fault. And, do you have someone?" "Yes, I have. This is Emilin, my old. He didn't know how to formulate it love that has returned to my life." "I see," she whispered. "I hope everything goes well for you. I'm sorry if this child interferes with your plans." Cole put his hand on her shoulder. "Look, if it's my baby, I'll accept it. I will help. But we will not return to married life, that's for sure." They exchanged a long glance. Hannah seemed to be consciously accepting the consequences of her actions for the first time. A few days later, Cole received a call from the clinic. "The results are ready, you can drive up." He took a taxi and went with Hannah. The doctor, an elderly man with a comb-over, said, "The paternity test indicates that Mr. Shepard is 99.9% the father of the fetus. Congratulations, you are having a baby." Hannah covered her mouth with her hand, and Cole felt his chest turn over. His child. Unexpected, but still his child. They were silent the entire way back to the motel, digesting the news. In the evening, when they sat on the porch, Hannah spoke for the first time. "This is your child. So, what now?" "I'll help you get back to a safer place," Cole said, trying to remain calm. "If necessary, you can temporarily live in Eivelyn Cove. I have friends, maybe we can decide something. I'll rent you a place nearby." She looked away, realizing that this was the only option. "Okay, I don't deserve more. I just need stability to carry my child." "Fine. And I'll tell Emilin everything," Cole added. "I need her support. I don't want to hide anything from her. Understand?" The next day they flew back, Hannah with a little belly and a feeling of uncertainty, Cole with the confidence that he now had a child to take care of. Contradictions were still raging inside how to do it without hurting Emilin. But for himself, he definitely decided he will not leave Emilin, but will give the child a future. When he arrived in St. Morgan, he rented Hannah a small studio on the outskirts, not fancy, but better than a creepy motel in Miami. I bought her some food and basic necessities. She agreed to move there for a while, promising that as soon as she found a job, she would pay for it herself. Carla, having learned about Hannah's return, was both happy and angry at the same time. "Well, at least she didn't disappear somewhere under the fence," she told Cole. Now the most difficult thing remained to tell Emilin everything frankly. Cole invited her to dinner at his hangar and decided not to delay. When she arrived, he noticed a shadow of anxiety in her gaze. Perhaps she already guessed that the news was not easy. They sat down at a table on which Cole placed simple food, fried fish with vegetables, salad, water. First, we discussed her well-being after the last attack. It had noticeably improved. And then he said quietly, I have some news to share. The test showed that I would have a child with Hannah." "I understand." She closed her eyes as if gathering strength. "So, after all, yes, I'm not going to resume relations with her. It's in the past. But the baby is coming, and I can't turn away. I'll help her." And what does this mean for us? Emilin asked, her voice trembling. Will you spend part of your time with her, help raise the child? I am afraid that illness will make me a burden for you, and you will have a child of a healthy woman. No, he interrupted softly, taking her hands. I love you. Everything is clear with Hannah. Yes, I will help financially, perhaps see the child, but this does not mean that I will live with her. I only need you. Tears appeared in Emilin's eyes, but a smile of relief played on her lips. Thank you for saying everything honestly. I'll accept it. It's not the child's fault that he has such a strange story. Yes, Cole also smiled through his excitement. I hope this doesn't hurt you too much. It won't happen if you stay with me, she whispered. He nodded, holding her close to him, feeling her fragility and incredible inner strength at the same time. At this moment, the understanding came that their destinies were finally intertwined. Emilin, Cole, and this unborn child who could replace the disappointed hopes of the past. Another month has passed. Hannah stayed to live in a small studio and visited the doctor from time to time. Cole stopped by regularly, brought food, and inquired about her condition. They agreed that after the birth of the child, an official entry would be made in the paternity certificate, and Cole would help financially. And Cole himself went deeper and deeper into his relationship with Emilin. He took her for examinations when her symptoms worsened, helped her buy medicine, and took her for walks by the sea. The hangar was gradually transformed into a real workshop, and the first customers for boat repairs had already appeared. Justin grinned and said, "You're going to be rich soon, buddy." And then one day, when he and Emilin were sitting on a swing by the shore, looking at the sunset, Cole took her hand and said, "I don't want to waste a single day. Marry me." Emilin couldn't believe her ears. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "But I'm sick, like us. It doesn't matter. I want to be with you through thick and thin, in sickness and in health. We will get through it together." She hugged him tightly, pressing him close. They sat like that until the sun went below the horizon, feeling that everything was ambiguous and there were many trials ahead. But the main thing is that they are together and both are ready to fight. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one.